Welcome back to Compensation Matters. I'm your host, Deanna Romanowski. In our last episode, we looked at the big picture of how AI is starting to transform sales performance management. Everything from faster implementations to smarter forecasting. The tech we use today is changing, and it's important to anticipate what's coming. But there's still a gap between what's in our future and what's already here. And the most common question we get isn't what's coming, it's actually how can I use AI right now? So in this episode, Yuki Cheung is back to walk us through a few concrete examples where GenAI, or more specifically Microsoft Copilot, can streamline some of those consuming and risk-prone compensation processes today. Yuki, thank you so much for joining us again, and welcome back.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So to jump right in, what are the biggest pain points in compensation operations today? The ones that AI can actually help with?
So before we talk about pain points, let's talk about what are the top priorities, and then that would lead us to what we're trying to achieve. So in terms of priorities, compensation has to be done accurately and on time all the time. At the same time, though, the war of talent, especially in sales organizations, requires compensation rules to be very nimble. So flexibility is another, if not the top priority. But how do you automate if the rules can change and exceptions can be made anytime?
Right, it's such a paradox. The moments where automation would be the most helpful are impossible to automate because the rules just don't stand still.
Right. So in comp ops, the tug of war between accuracy, efficiency, and flexibility makes traditional automation not a great fit. The result is that in many companies, some being the biggest Fortune 500s, compensation processes retain a large number of manual steps, which are inefficient and prone to mistakes.
Yep. Just to put it into perspective, the latest Ernst & Young study on the subject found that 1 in 5 payrolls had errors, and they averaged around $291 per fix. So for a company that has 1,000 employees, that's 200 fixes per pay cycle, or $1.5 million annually. And that doesn't even begin to account for all the work weeks and staff it takes to actually reconcile some of this. So thanks for mapping that out. It's a huge reminder of what compensation teams are actually up against and how much of it directly impacts the business. Let's do the fun part now. Let's walk through how GenAI can help right away.
For sure. So today we will be using Microsoft Copilot for the demos. And that's because Copilot is probably the most widely available GenAI tool at corporate environments right now.
Yeah, and I read a Microsoft Copilot survey that actually found that it increased productivity by almost 30% for routine tasks. This wasn't specific to compensation, but I'm sure some of this translates.
For sure. So for the first scenario, we will be doing contract reviews and data entry using Copilot on Microsoft Word. We will be looking at the company ABC Financial. The industry I have chosen for today's demo is wealth management, specifically because it's a highly competitive industry. And here the compensation terms and contracts continuously evolve to attract top talent. So let's play the demo.
Great.
So here we are with ABC Financial. We are running the month-end process, and we have 5 new contracts that we have to review and enter the details into our SPM system. What we notice here is these employment contracts don't follow an exact template. Some of the commission clauses are slightly different, and the compensation structure is also slightly different. So let's start. We open Copilot here by clicking here. This little chat window comes up. Now we're going to do a simple prompt. Summarize employment contracts in a table. Copilot is able to determine the best format it thinks. So of course, in your organization, you need the data in a specific format, in which case you can tell it to summarize the data exactly in the table with the following columns. Put the columns here. So here you have the data in the exact format that you asked of Copilot. In the real world, we actually need the data in different tables. especially if you are to import it into downstream systems. So you can do that as well. You can tell Copilot you want to summarize the data in these specific tables with these specific columns, and you can get that. So HR data table, commissions table, and a bonus table. And there you go. So we've been able to do this very quickly, but the reason why current processes are usually manual for contract reviews is because there's a lot of information that are not captured in the table format. Now you can ask Copilot to check for them for you. So do any of the employment contracts have compensation clauses outside of these tables? Notice that we did not ask it to summarize it into table format, so it didn't, but it still provided all the information we needed. If we want it to be in the table format because we want to be able to save it somewhere, or if we need it for reporting purpose, we can. So in the prompt, we just tell it, please put into a table with employee ID and the compensation clause, or whatever format you want it to be. And there you go, you have all of that information in the table format. We would still recommend you to go through the contracts manually and review them and make sure that nothing else was missed. It still is much faster process than it would have been otherwise.
So it's obvious how doing things in batches is superior to doing things one at a time. But let's spell out any of the other outcomes of this process that may not be so obvious.
Yeah, so the original time that we would have needed for this process is maybe 5 minutes per contract to review and to input the information and then to upload. With Copilot, it would take maybe 2 minutes to copy and paste in the prompt, 1 minute per contract to review, and 2 minutes to copy and paste the final data into the system. So for 5 contract, we're talking about 25 minutes down to 9 minutes, and that's 64% productivity gain. For 20 contracts, we would be at almost 2 hours down to 24, and that would have been a 76% productivity gain. And if we scale that higher, the more the gains. So the larger your organization, the bigger the gains. And it's not just about sitting time. It's also about having Copilot do the checks that either eliminates typos, catches missed clauses, etc. And it really acts as a second pair of eyes to improve accuracy. So all in all, GenAI makes the process faster and more accurate, which means lower operational costs, fewer mistakes, fewer escalation, better trust, and so on.
Yeah, this sounds like a fantastic opportunity for improvement. Are we ready for a second demo?
Yes, so the second demo will be on month-end reconciliations with Copilot in Excel. Here we are processing the period end pay. Our SPM system has computed everyone's incentive compensation amounts. And we now need to run several checks on the numbers and then provide approval to send the final numbers over to payroll.
Before we dig into this, can you explain a little bit about how these tests are run today?
Yes, so if you're lucky and if your SPM tool's original implementation had the budget, you may have some exception reports or month-end checks processes already built into your SPM model. But the challenge with these built-in checks is that if you want to add or change anything in the logic, if you have new rules or the compliance have changed, it can take weeks or even months to implement, keeping in mind that these are usually classified as low-priority items. So it really is difficult to get them updated. So many teams resort to manual Excel workarounds. So that they build their own workbooks to identify exceptions and run reconciliations. So here we will build one together, but this time using Copilot. So without further ado, let's play the demo.
Great.
For this demo, we will be walking through the process documentation here to run some month-end checks as part of the month-end closing process. Step 1 is to bring in the data to Excel, which we've already done here. So here at ABC Financial, advisors can either be working individually, in which case their data would show up in the commissions table, or they can be part of a team, in which case their commissions would show up in the commissions table. Another peculiarity is advisors at ABC Financial have to be licensed in order to be eligible for commissions. Finally, we also brought in data from the current month and also the pay data from the prior months. And that will be part of our exercise today. We're going to be grabbing all the individuals we want to run checks for. So now we have their employee ID, their name, and their job title. Now we're going to start Copilot here, and we're going to be copy and pasting in our first prompt. While this runs, let's explain what we're trying to do here. We're trying to identify all the individuals who are inactive but paid. So we're going to check all the individuals who have a status of an inactive in the HR data tab, and an amount in the pay file tab other than 0. The result should be to review if the amount is not 0, or okay if the amount is 0. And here's what the result looks like. So let's look at what Copilot did here. It first reiterates what you told it to do in its own words. It gives you the formula that goes into the column. And finally, it gives you a snapshot of how the result looks like, and you can just insert the column by clicking on this button. And now you're done. And what you need to do, you just need to put a filter in here, and now you can filter for all the individuals that are flagged for review. So let's go to our second prompt, and we're going to copy and paste this in. So what this prompt is trying to do is to identify all the individuals who are unlicensed but pay commissions or team commissions. So for this one, we're looking at individuals who have the license column as no, but they have a non-zero total amount in the commissions tab or a non-zero amount in the team commissions tab. And there we go. But we notice actually associates are flagged for review as well, when the reality is associates can be eligible for commissions if they are working with an advisor, even if they are unlicensed. So we need to modify our prompt a little bit. So let's do that. I'm going to say is not an associate A or associate B, which is column B of HR data tab. And that's it. I save my document and I go back here to copy and paste it. So we see the added clause here. And what this illustrates is how easy it is to change the criteria or the logic of your checks. So if the compensation plan change, or if there is any new rules that need to be accommodated, all you need to do is type it in, and there you go. You have your new logic ready. And we can see here, just as a check, that associates are no longer flagged for review. For the next one, we will look at how, instead of a full paragraph like this, you can actually format it in this manner. So let's let it run first. And let's look at the prompt together. So give me the formula to identify if the employee of the month-end checks tab meets the following criteria. The result should be to review if all criteria are true, or if okay if not. And then name the column this. And here are the 5 criteria. This way, if you want to add new criteria, or if you need to change any of them, it becomes extremely easy. Copilot has no problem parsing through that, so I would recommend writing your prompts in this manner. Now, our last example for today. It's slightly different from the others. We are comparing the current month payments with the prior month payments. We want to identify the individuals who have over 20% more or 15% less than the prior month. The result should show the percentage if it's more, or okay if not. Then name the column this. Oh, it's already done. Here it is. So as we can see, it is showing the exact percentage if it's beyond the threshold or okay if it's not. All right, so here I formatted the worksheet a little bit, and we can see how the final product would look like. And here we have a quick data check that flags a number of cases that may need investigation or intervention.
So this clearly reduces manual effort, which of course is the main promise of AI across the board. Can you speak a little bit more to what else this changes for the function?
Yeah, so Excel workbooks like these are pretty common as part of the period closing process. But when you have a pre-built workbook with existing formulas, anyone who worked with Excel will know you have to be very careful when you paste in new data. So the beauty of generating new formulas every time is that you bypass these Excel kinks and you can put in new checks or even change the criteria for the checks anytime you want. And very easy and without taking much time at all. Another thing is the reality is many composition teams don't have the skills or the time, mainly the time, to build automated testing tools like this. So an AI assistant that generates the formulas based on text and almost instantly will help tremendously.
So how much time do you think this actually saves in real life?
So traditionally, you would copy and paste the data into your workbook. So let's say that takes 15 minutes, and that doesn't change with AI. But fixing the formulas could take you up to 1 to 2 hours. Now with Copilot, again, you copy and paste in the data, but then you just copy and paste in the prompts and the formulas, and you're done. And let's say that takes 15 minutes. We are already looking at 2 hours down to 30 minutes. That is a 75% productivity increase. And that happens during probably BD1 or 2, so the most stressful day or two of your month.
Yeah, that's huge. So we walked through onboarding new contracts and how AI can make improvements there. We also talked about pay period exceptions. But of course, these use cases aren't the only times in the day of a compensation administrator that these tools can be handy. What are some other examples, just off the top of your head, that you can kind of anticipate where these tools can be really transformative?
So the biggest common riddle to solve not only for SPM systems, but for modern SaaS systems in general is how can we be sure that a routine system update does not break our configuration? So every month, every quarter, or every year that they push either minor or major releases, theoretically, any of those can break our configuration. And the fact is, the onus is always on the client, so the user, to test every time a system release occurs. So with Copilot, we can generate tests pretty easily, like we've shown on our second demo. And we could change the rules and add new criteria easily. And that will help us tremendously in building smoke tests and run these routine checks. Another use case, similar to the contract review this time, is the annual policy or comp plan changes that happen. And with Copilot, all you have to do is to import these policy or compensation plan documents, and Copilot can generate the data that you need in the format that you need to import into the system. And finally, there are a couple more use cases that are a little bit more self-explanatory. For example, answering and investigating questions from the field. So if someone asks you, well, what caused the $200 charge last month? Or what caused this payment, etc., the AI assistants like Copilot are going to be able to answer and troubleshoot far more easily than if you were to look into the data yourself. Similarly, if leadership is now asking you questions, you can collect data easily. So questions that they need on strategic decisions, such as how many people would be impacted if we put in a certain plan change and in what way. Now you can compute the information very easily with these AI assistants.
And that can be a huge part of having this function move towards becoming a strategic lever for the business rather than just a back office admin function, which is the trend we're seeing these days as it is. So to wrap things up, what we talked about today isn't hypothetical, it's already here. And whether you're onboarding new reps or validating monthly payouts or fielding these one-off compensation questions, tools like Copilot can make your day-to-day faster, cleaner, more scalable. And these aren't magic solutions, but when used well, they can make your manual heavy lifting off of your plate, freeing you up to focus on work that's more strategic and needs your judgment. Yuki, thank you for walking us through what's possible and for showing us that the future of compensation operations is already in progress.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.